coming up with ideas, just, it could be a silly one, but if you can see what kind of a future you want to see built, and if you can align that idea with that version of the future, guess what? Not only will you solve that problem, but you will also build the future you want to see. And I want to inspire you all to think that way. You're not going to solve it over the weekend, but it is a first step. The first step in any big thing is you have to take that first step. And I want to congratulate you all for taking that first step, because you're here. Now that you're here, now the next step is to get your team together, start thinking about some of the ideas that I'm going to talk about, and then go and work as a team, right? At the end of this weekend, you're not expected to have a fully functioning product. You're not expected to have customers. You're not expected to have anything. All you need to have is a version of the future that you can articulate to the judges that can be built, right? And I think you can do that. And I've seen it done, and I think you can do that really well. Okay? Good. Okay, let's get started. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? This is a hard question, something that you believe to be true, but very few people think it's true. It also makes you unpopular to say this. There might be a technology that looks impossible today, but you believe that it can be possible, but most people don't think it's possible. Like, for example, a very controversial thing to say. I think life expectancy is going to go up to maybe 150 years. Okay? How many of you in this room think that's possible?
Probably even more.
Okay, then it's not that contrarian. Okay? You've just blown that idea out of the water. What is controversial to say, but in that lies an opportunity? That's what this question asks you to think about. It's a contrarian view to see the world. And I'll give you a very specific example in my own journey. So in 2009, investing in Iceland was a contrarian thing to do, which is what I did. And I didn't have any money. I actually went and begged my family to give me some money. And when I pitched the idea that we should invest in Iceland in 2009, almost everybody in my family looked at me and said, "Have you lost your mind? Everybody in the world seems to be running away from that place, taking their money and exiting, and you want to invest? That makes no sense." At that time, nobody was talking about startups. Nobody didn't even know the word hackathon. And I held the first hackathon exactly in this room. No, in that other room. I think it was V201. When we talked about hackathon, coming up with ideas, building new things using technology, almost everybody looked at me like, what has happened to this guy? I think he's probably lost his mind. But again, 10 years fast forward, at that time it was a contrarian truth that I saw, that the future will be defined by technology-based companies. And I actually wrote a blog post which a lot of people read. I knew that because nobody read my blog post. That one everybody read. So I don't write anymore, but I should. It was about, the topic was how Iceland can build the next Google. And suddenly, a lot of people were reading the blog post. And then the second most read blog post in my writing history was my vision for Iceland. Because at that time, a lot of people were lost. They didn't know where Iceland was going to go. What should we be doing? Again, I'm not a politician. I'm not a appointed leader. Nobody gave me anything to think about. I just came up with the idea, and I said, you know what? Iceland has a lot of power, well-educated workforce, young workforce. We can actually build new things that the future wants. And if we build things that the future wants, guess what? We'll kind of build ourselves out of this mess. And that was the hypothesis. And you would be surprised, in 2009, that was an answer to this question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? In 2009, very few people agreed with me on nothing. They basically looked at me and said, you've just gone crazy. But over time, a lot of these startups got it, the first one that I invested in was acquired by a NASDAQ-listed company. Then suddenly everybody's like, oh, this is doable. Actually, you can make money doing this. And the second one was acquired by Priceline. The third one was acquired by NetApp. And the fourth one became a very successful, profitable company in a very short period of time. So that changed mindset. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, 2 months back, the first Icelandic billion-dollar company was sold to a Danish listed company called Kerecis. And Kerecis was founded after the collapse. So within 10 plus years, we created almost $1 billion in value from this small island using fish skin to be used in skin grafting, burn victims, diabetic amputation, so on and so forth. And that is what's possible, right? So you all have a chance to come up with that kind of an idea this weekend. But you need to take this seriously, because in 2012, I know Gudmund Fertram, the founder of Kerecis, very well. When he first started on this idea that you can actually make skin grafting from fish skin, I'm sure a lot of people looked at him like he'd gone crazy. So that's kind of a requirement. When you say something and when everybody immediately agrees with you, then you're not on the edge, right? So think about your ideas. So what do you think this is?
Taxi.
What is it?
Taxi.
It's a taxi, yeah? Yeah? It's more like public transportation.
Yeah.
It's more like a bus. Yeah, it's like a bus, right? You can see there are stops where this thing will stop, and I'm sure the guys who are sitting up there will pay a different price from the guy sitting inside, right? Very similar to it. Imagine you go back in time to this period, and then you meet these people, and then you tell them, in the future, we will have similar carriages, but there will be no horse. What do you think they'll say?
You're crazy.
Yeah. They'll say, you're crazy. How the hell are we going to move this carriage? And you say, well, actually, there will be these machines that will just, kind of run on some liquid that we pour or something that works on battery. And they probably look at you like, okay, this is just totally nonsense, right? So the reason why I have this picture is because you are at that point in time. Imagine you transport yourself into the future and you see what's missing there. And then you come back here and you say, I'm going to build that, right? It needs to be something almost as crazy as going to this person and saying there will be no horse. So we've kind of moved a little bit into the future now. So somebody's actually taking in advertising to show that you can actually get rid of your horse. Dispense with a horse. You don't need to have a horse anymore, right? And this car, this motor vehicle, costs about $1,000. Okay, and I don't know when this was, didn't date it, but you can see to run a motor carriage cost about half a cent a mile. What do you think is the cost of running our gasoline and electric cars in Iceland today? It's about, I think it's about very similar to this, about half a cent a mile, something like that. So we've done okay, right? In about 100 years, we've gotten better cars, but the cost still is comparable, right? Any other observations when you read this that you see? Let me read it. So, dispense with a horse and save the expense, care and anxiety of keeping it. To run a motor carriage, it costs about half a cent a mile. This is the Winston motor carriage. Is the best vehicle of its kind that is made. It is handsomely strong and yet lightly constructed and elegantly finished, easily managed. Speed from 3 to 20 miles an hour. The hydrocarbon motor is simple and powerful. No odor, no vibration, suspense, wire wheels, pneumatic tires, ball bearings. Send for a catalog. The Winston Motor Carriage Company, Cleveland, Ohio. So we have maybe what? We can now go at maybe 200 miles an hour, give or take. I mean, if you're in the Autobahn, maybe 300 miles an hour, 350, something like that. So we've done about 150 times the speed from going from point A to point B for the same cost, almost, which is pretty good, right? So we have significantly improved on this motor vehicle, the capacity of this motor vehicle. But that is still incremental improvement, right? Going from something that was horse-drawn to motor vehicle was vertical improvement, like going from 0 to 1. But from that car to this one has been 1 to n. We have marginally made it better every year. There's nothing wrong in that. But today you have an opportunity to think about going from 0 to 1 rather than going from 1 to n. Don't take something that exists today and say, I'm going to make it 20% better or 50% better or 100% better. There's nothing wrong in doing that. But if you're going to do something at all, go from 0 to 1, because then you will dramatically change where this future can be. So coming up with ideas, don't limit where you can go with this, right? Today, when you do hackathons, there's usually some theme, some API, some companies will come and say, you do it in this way. You don't have any of those constraints. Zero constraints, right? So come up with something dramatic. Come up with something that changes the course of our history. You can. Every one of us has the capacity to do it. We are consistently told that you cannot. And I'm here to challenge you to say that you can, right? So now that I've inspired you to get out of your mindset, how do we do this? How do you come up with ideas? Talked about brainstorming, right? Brainstorming is great. You can come up with ideas, but unfortunately, brainstorming is based on what you already know. How do you come up with original thinking? And we have done this before, right? As humanity, we have done this before. All of those people who have come up with really original ideas did it with first principles thinking. So what is first principles thinking? Actually going down to the grassroots level and asking the question, is it physically possible? For example, teleportation. Let's talk about that, okay? Pretty out there concept. I'm sure you've all seen Star Trek. You walk into energy chamber, and then you suddenly get teleported to another place. Is it physically possible? Right? First principles question. Does the physics that we know today allows us to do that? Again, I'm not a physicist, so I don't know the answer to that question, but I can take a relatively good guess that maybe we cannot. We still haven't found how to convert matter to, we know how to convert matter to energy. You just have to burn it up, right? That's simple. You burn it and it converts to energy. But we still haven't figured out how to convert energy back to matter, the same matter, the same structure, right? So again, the way to break down problems is to think about these first principles. And you can think about these first principles about every domain, right? Everything that you see as rules today was made by somebody like you before. And you can change them, right? So I work with startups. So the strength of startups is to ask these questions from scratch and rethink business from scratch, right? And you can do that. And I've successfully invested in a bunch of startups that have done that. Okay? And how many of you use Indo? Indo Bank. You're not signed up with Indo Bank? You're all losing money. Seriously. Indo is the only bank in Iceland that pays you 4% on your current account. All other banks pay you 1%. Or if you have a savings account, you can earn 9%. And you all can pull out your app today and download it. As long as you're legally in Iceland, you can open a bank account in Indo. And you are not the 38,000 customers who are on Indo today. The bank launched in January. We are in September, so it's like what, 7 months? They have 9% of debit card turnover in Iceland in 7 months.
But what about the Landsbanken? They start as well, or like something for like it's like some sort of.
Sure, they can. I'm sure competitively they are trying to be comparable. But those who move into Indo, when you think about what they offer, it's always going to be better, because Landsbanki's cost structure and Indo's cost structure is totally different. So, as I said, you don't have to give up on your old bank, but if you get better rates on a different banking, you move it with just a simple app, right? And the reason I'm giving that as an example is because when the founders and I started thinking about how to build a better bank, how to start with building a better bank in Iceland. Start from scratch. How do we do that? And when we pitched the idea to some of my investors and some of my advisors, my board of directors, all of them said, "Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? What's wrong with the bank? The existing banks will squash you. They will kill you." And we said, "No, they won't. They won't take us seriously until it's too late. Like now. Like it's too late now. They can't do anything about it now." The nice thing about coming up with new ideas is that you can rethink business from scratch. And that's what we did. We said, how do we build a better bank that does not have all the bad things about the old banking structure? And so first thing is that we need to eliminate all the people, because that's where most of the bias comes from. So we said, what if we automate everything and the machines do most of the grunt work? Because banks is just, it's nothing but a ledger, right? keeping track of transactions, making sure your money doesn't go anywhere. By the way, we don't have a vault because we don't have to, because all money in Iceland is electronic. It's all kept in the central bank anyway, right? Every bank keeps it there. We don't need a headquarters. We said, how many people do we need to build this bank? And we realized, actually, with 10 decent software engineers, we can build this bank. 10 people. That's it. What's the cost structure of Indo? Nothing. It's like this compared to the cost structure of Landsbanki, because they have this huge headquarters which is occupying the most expensive real estate in Iceland, right? When you think about it. We don't have to have all that because everything runs on the phone. Our bank runs on the phone. We built it that way. We have 38,000+ customers now, and it'll be growing. It's growing. And I was just with the team yesterday. They were telling me Indo is the most recommended brand in Iceland, even higher than Tesla. Just like me. I'm recommending Indo to you all, right? And we're doing it not because I'm going to gain anything, right? People do it because they think it's better than what other alternatives there are. And that's possible. You can come up with something, although it is existing, but it could be 10 times better. So what is 10 times better in Indo? We are 10 times cheaper to run from an existing bank, or actually 1,000,000 times cheaper, 1,000,000 times. The number of accounts in Indo has exponentially grown. The team size is only 17, 17. It will never be like the existing banks. The cost structure will never go up exponentially like the other banks, right?
Do you offer the same services as other banks?
So we don't do loans yet, which will come in the next half of this year, but it'll be simple loans. We won't do mortgages. We won't be doing asset-backed loans. It'll be simple overdrafts because the customer segment that Indo is going after is somebody who has a salary account, right? Most of the people who just have a salary account don't need all the complexity the banks offer. They just want a safe place to store their money, get better returns, and use it whenever they travel, anywhere they go, simply without paying all those fees, right? Simple as that. So keeping in that motto, simple products, simple banking products that majority of Icelanders need at the lowest cost, right? I'm giving this as an example. You can take up an incumbent, that is somebody who is well established in this market or any market, and you can build a competitor to that, but you can't play by the same rules. If we built Indo with the same cost structure, we would lose to the existing banks, right? The only thing that we did is change the rules of the game, because it'll be very hard for the existing banks to copy what we do. It's impossible almost, right? They'll have to fire everybody. They're not going to do that. They'll have to get rid of the buildings. They're not going to do that. So how are they going to compete? They can't. So that's kind of how you should think about existing ideas and markets, okay? So this all begs the question, why should we do this? All of us have a say in what the future we want to live in. I think this is also one of those things that we've all been handed down, that you do this, you do this, you do this, you get a job, and then you get on with life. Not true. Not true. You can look at the future and say, I don't like this future. I want to build a different future. Right? And you can go about and doing it. You can build that. So I'll give you some examples of how people thought about the future. So this was actually a drawing that was done in the early 1900s, about the year 2000. Right? This, I'm pretty sure you can guess what this is. What is this? A school. A school, but yes, you're right, audiobooks, right? Physical books thrown into some machine where you grind it and then it comes out through the wire into everybody's ear. It's audible. It's audiobooks. We've solved this one. So he wasn't too far off. Barbershop, right? Luckily, we don't have to have such big machines. We use small machines in a barbershop. By the way, I'm sure you've all gone. We use machines to cut hair, shave, do all that. You know, vacuum cleaner, Roomba, right? That's what that is. Again, pretty prescient if you think about it. All the drones that are now flying over all kinds of war zone places, killing everybody. It's a terrible waste of human resource. But guess what? We do that all the time. Do it all the time. So they imagine that. So they imagine flying machines that'll kill us as humans. Flying firemen. I don't know how those wings will work, but again, it seems to be something. Self-driving tractors controlled by a farmer. You know, ways to transport buildings from point A to point B. Why do we need this? Anyone? Why did they think that that was important enough to build that way? So maybe the cost of building was so high that they did not want to destroy buildings. They probably wanted to reuse buildings. So, go from point A to point B, build somewhere, maybe it's not useful there, move it somewhere else. So it all comes down to cost and technology, right? If we learn how to build something for cheap, we wouldn't need this, right? Through these pictures, I'm giving you ideas about everyday things. We need this one in Iceland, right? A dome over Iceland so we can have perfect weather all the time. Or this, blow away all the clouds so it doesn't rain. And then Snapchat. It was pretty, I would say that it was pretty progressive. They actually took a plane, they flew themselves and to a remote place, and then they were served drinks and they could smoke outside and talk on Snapchat. We do that now, I guess. Maybe not the smoking, because we know now that it kills. So these are all some ideas from the past on how they imagine the future, right? Is there one thing, one thread that kind of connects all of this? Can you think of something that connected all of these pictures? It's technology focused, right? Without technology, you couldn't achieve what they were projecting that was possible. And the second thing is that they didn't invent new technology. They used existing technology to think about the future. For example, today we use wireless stuff, right? Maybe at that time wireless was not even invented. So they had to use what they knew, which was wired things. You can see there is a wire connecting every device, right? Today we have a phone that wirelessly communicates everything, right? So in order to come up with new ideas about the future, however hard you try, it has to be grounded in the present technologies for various reasons, because that's what we know. Unless you work in really fundamental technology that changes everything. For example, I know a lot of the founders that I know, some of them are working on some groundbreaking gene editing, right? It's brand new technology. And I'm sure you guys have heard about CRISPR. You know about CRISPR? You know, the virus-based mechanism to kind of edit the gene, genetic reprogramming to fix some of genetic defects and so on and so forth. That's like really new technology that we don't even know. The frontiers of what can be done there, even the ones who are on the edge don't know, right? So when you are in that kind of a mode, we don't know what's possible. Maybe we can cure cancer. Maybe we can just edit the genes that causes cancer and then we're done. That might be possible. But is it true? Is it true? Only when we do the exercises we know, right? So the question for you all as a team, when you start thinking about the hackathon, is to think about what is that you imagine about the future that will get better, and how will you build it, right? So we talked about vertical versus horizontal progress. Taking an electric car and making it 1,000 times better is vertical progress. Horizontal progress, sorry. Vertical progress is actually going from a horse to a machine-driven car. That's vertical progress. So today, in the energy problem that we have, we can invent new energy technologies that will make fossil fuel obsolete. We wouldn't have to use fossil fuel, okay? Is that possible? Yes, there are technologies today that's possible, right? I mean, how many of you have an electric car, right? So it's possible. It's comparable. It's actually getting to be as good. And I think Iceland will probably be one of those countries where suddenly you'll turn around and you see that everybody's driving an electric car. There will be no need to have gasoline cars in Iceland, right? Actually, economically, it makes no sense, like no sense today to drive an a gasoline car in Iceland. The cost is so expensive compared to electricity, right? So I'm going to give you some ideas of some breakthrough technologies that are already here. So you can start from, you don't have to invent this technology. It's already here, right? And so this is an exercise for you. So now that we've talked about all that, I'll go into the technologies, but you need to come up with 5 things that are broken in your immediate surrounding, right? It's broken. You see it and it's broken. But we say, we'll adjust and move on, right? You have to come up with 5 things that's broken. Identify who are the people who interface with this problem every day and they put up with it because humans are adaptable. Like, for example, we take somebody from Iceland, we throw them into the most backward of places. They will complain for like maybe a few days and then they'll adapt to that place and they'll just live on. We have seen that happen everywhere, right? So identify 5 things. Identify who are these people who put up with this. Who are they? How would you describe them? How do these people cope up with the broken system? Let me give you one example. Traffic. Traffic in all major cities in the world. Every major city has a traffic problem. All of us put up with it, right? Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Anyone?
You can change it.
You cannot change it, right? Guess what? You have a chance today. You can change it. You have a chance today to change it. You can fix this problem. If you come and tell me I'm going to fix you waiting in road at 4 o'clock from Grande to Fossover, which usually takes about 7 minutes. I spent about 40. Mind boggles. And you're like, how is this possible? Right? I put up with it every freaking day. Right? All of us do. So come up with ideas. How can we fix this problem? Right? What technologies are you going to use? You know, people in MIT Technology Review, this is what they do. Every year they put out 10 breakthrough technologies. And I shamelessly go there and say, let's copy what they've figured it out, and let's see if it can fix some of these big problems we have in the world today. Right?
China style.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to start somewhere. The first one they thought about for 2023 is end of passwords. Yeah, we're almost there. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, you don't need any password. It more or less works. I don't know if it's good or great, but I don't need to remember a lot of passwords. COVID variant tracking. Long-lasting grid batteries, right? Long-lasting grid batteries will solve the energy equation problem. AI for protein folding. Okay, AI is a game changer in everything today, right? And if you are building something without using AI, you are missing out, right? So if you don't know what AI is, again, here's the time. You have the time this whole weekend. We're going to give you food. We're going to give you time. Figure it out. Spend a couple of hours. Go read everything there is to read about AI and see how you can fit it to the idea that you're pitching, right? I have known founders who have gone and locked themselves in a room over a weekend and learned how to do something. Coding, search engine optimization, website building, just programming, database administration, because they just didn't have time or the money to go hire somebody who will figure it out. What do? They went and learned it. You can do it today, tomorrow, right? Here's a great chance. Figure it out. That's what resourceful founders do. If somebody tells you you're going to solve this problem by hiring somebody, wrong answer. Nobody's going to solve it that way. You got to solve it in your own head. You got to go learn. Today, all this information is available. You just need to commit to go after it, right? Malarial vaccine. Proof of stake. Anybody in crypto world understands what this is. I'm not going to go into it. A pill for COVID. No need for vaccines. Practical fusion reactors. By the way, if we solve this fusion reactor problem, we don't need to have coal. We don't need to have fossil fuel at all. I know a bunch of founders are working on this too. And this is, by the way, this is not science fiction. This is real, okay? It's still not moved out of the lab yet, but it will. In the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to become real technology. Synthetic data for AI. You want to learn what this is? Go read up. I'm not going to tell you. And Iceland made the list. This is Carbfix. How many of you know about Carbfix? Carbfix is a company in Iceland that actually has the largest carbon removal facility from the air today. Carbfix found the chemistry and the technology to capture carbon and push it into the ground, and it turns to stone in 2 years. That's their big discovery. When you inject carbon into basalt rock, it turns into stone in 2 years. 2 years. It's a big discovery, by the way. And Carbfix also won Elon Musk's X Prize for the best carbon removal and sequestering technology. So they won $1 million, and they're working on the next level for the $100 million to show that they are the most effective way to actually carbon capture and push it into the ground. All right, so that was 2023. This is 2022. Okay, I don't want to go through all of them. This is 2021. So sensing cities, right? This is now already being tried out in Toronto. Okay, and I think if we had sensing cities, we can fix traffic problems. Right? I think we can. Like, think about your car that actually has sensors connected to all the traffic in Reykjavík. And it can, by the way, we do that now with Google Maps. And if you're driving in the US, it actually tells you, take this route, less traffic, right? We could actually go one step further. We can actually tell you what time you should drive so there won't be any cars, right? Then you can basically tell everybody to reschedule their back and forth, right? Companies can incentivize people to say, you know what, we are actually being carbon efficient by allowing you not to spend as much time on the roads, right? ESG goals, they all have environmental sustainability goals now. They'll have to check mark that, right? They can say, oh, we use smart scheduling, so our shift work is scheduled in such a way that nobody spends more than 10 minutes on a car coming to work or going to home. What is the actual savings of that? Pretty big, pretty significant, I would think. This is every day, you know. And there's a reason why HOP, you know, the electric car, scooter rental company, won Startup of the Year award this year, because they're taking people away from buying their own cars and using fossil-based transportation, which is great. Again, this has become reality. All of you have access to AI, ChatGPT. You can use it. Dueling neural networks. Again, this is a language. We have invested in a company called Baratala that allows you to speak Icelandic if you're not a native Icelander. You know, it can teach you how to speak in Icelandic. You don't have to learn like you are a native Icelander to speak Icelandic, right? That was the switch to say that, why should I go and learn grammar the same way? I just want to speak. Let me just speak, right? So Babelfish is supposed to. So it's already, Google Translate does this. So perfect privacy online. Genetic fortune telling, this is already real. Quantum computer is real. Unhackable internet, not sure about that. Hyper personalized medicine. I think this is coming. This is coming. Today, pharmaceutical industry is built around building a drug that will, on an average, work on everybody. So that's why it takes so long to get any new drug into market. But if you go into personalized medicine, that means a drug is made for you and you alone, because it genetically maps to you. It used to be very expensive to do. Not with simulation, not with computing gone down. And by the way, all of you are carrying a supercomputer. Every one of you. If somebody can come with a clever way to utilize all your network capacity and actually do these protein foldings and whatnot, guess what? Maybe personalized medicine wouldn't cost as much. Anti-aging drugs, this is already here. It's already here. Okay. If you don't believe me, follow this guy, Brian Johnson, on Twitter. Do you know about this guy?
Blueprint.
Brian Johnson? Blueprint. Check it out. He's 48 and wants to be 18. And I don't know if he looks like 18, but all his markers look like 18.
He's 90. Crazy.
I don't know. Whatever. Satellite mega constellation, tiny AI, climate change. Okay, so I'm done. There's plenty of things technologically already available. So that's a toolbox for you all today, right? You have this toolbox, got to come up with ideas, use the tools from the toolbox, and tell a good story, how and why this problem is important and how you're going to solve it with the tools that we talked about. It's all doable, can be done over a weekend, and hopefully you will all tell us great stories, but there are only 3 prizes. But on the other hand, we have space for 30 people to be in Hrafnahusid, the co-working space. So you can actually go and sit and work with that community and keep building for 3 months, right? So by registering for Startup Iceland, you have already secured a win, which is a co-working space in a community that is building new things, right? We're funding it, we're paying for it. Not we, our sponsors, which is the US Embassy and Storkur and Startup Iceland, we're paying for it because we want you all not just to stop after the hackathon, but continue to build on the idea, right?